Seriously, I just had it. We just got a whole bunch of stuff from Amazon, and I have my intercooler piping is currently out of the car getting fitted and a bung put on it for my blow-off valve. We are still chasing fuel pressure issues, so I still have my gauge hooked up. Today we're going to be doing a replacement of the fuel pump, which is down in through here. You can see I still have my wiring and my relay for the fuel pump rewire. I've got a Walboro 255. It's set to be here some point today. We're going to be pulling this out. We're going to see what's going on inside the fuel tank, then replace the fuel pump and retest everything over again. At this point, I would like to personally thank the Mazda design team and engineers for putting the fuel pump access right in the back of the hatch. It makes it so much easier to pull the fuel pump out, and you don't need to drop the tank in order to do it. There are a couple of lines and some wiring that you need to pull apart, but it's pretty straightforward, and as long as you have the proper tools to do it, it's a relatively easy process. Thankfully, you don't have to drop the tank to change out the fuel pump, because I would be dropping the tank several times throughout the process in diagnosing the fuel pump problems. It looks as though this has already seen a fuel pump upgrade, because I'm pretty sure this is not the stock pump. Looks a little bit big. Someone's definitely been in here before. And the fact that this thing sounds like a jet engine whenever the fuel pump fires up. I wanted to disassemble the fuel pump and pull it from the sending unit so that I could try to find some sort of identifying marker or serial numbers or something on the fuel pump to make it a little bit easier to identify what this fuel pump is and what vehicle it might have come out of. Don't see any markings except for this. It says 0 by 23. So I have absolutely no idea what fuel pump this is. What I found after some serious Google foo and some research is that the fuel pump that was in my car is actually a Nismo fuel pump, or it could be a stock fuel pump out of an R32 or 33 Skyline GTR, which is cool. They flow at about 276 liters per hour, and the Walboro that I'm going to be replacing it with flows at about 255, but they operate at about the same fuel pressure, which is all, of course, regulated with the FPR anyway, so no big deal. But I've found out that these buggers are actually pretty darn expensive, so if replacing the fuel pump doesn't solve my issue, that's definitely a part that I'll be hanging on to. I'm going to move on to a couple of other odds and ends. I want to get the fuel pressure gauge onto the fuel pressure regulator, and I want to figure out a way that I can mount that so that I can see it and it'll look nice, and that's what I'm going to focus on at this point. I haven't got back the intercooler piping with, the V-band fitting welded onto it yet. I'll be picking that up tomorrow and putting that on, and then it'll just be put the fuel pump in and replace a couple of vacuum lines that are suspect, and then take it for a test drive and see if that corrects the problem. I'm not 1000% sure that the fuel pump is my problem at this point, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that all back together and put it in the car. I have the fuel pressure regulator all plumbed in and ready to go, so I've got a gauge that I'll be able to monitor my fuel pressure, at least, not while I'm driving down the road, obviously. And I got my intercooler piping back from the shop, and I now have my Gen 5 race port blow-off valve installed and got it hooked up. And I put a button on a few other things up here just so that I can take it for a quick test drive. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the fuel pump back together, and I'm actually going to put it back into the car, and I'm going to hardwire it to the battery so that I know that it's getting a constant 12 volts. Got the fuel pump back in. I need to hook up that wire to constant source, and then we can test this out and have a good baseline of whether or not it's performing properly. Even though I'm getting 14.12, 14.13 volts at the back of the fuel pump, I am still at idle right around 30. Now there are a couple of possibilities. One, the stock FPR is still in this car. It hasn't been bypassed or eliminated yet. So that could be holding back the pressure from the secondary aftermarket fuel pressure regulator. It could be a sick fuel pump. It could be that the fuel pressure regulator just needs to be adjusted so that it sits at a higher pressure. So I'm gonna have to monkey around with a couple of things just to make sure I can rule out possibilities of replacing the fuel pump, because that Nismo fuel pump's over $1,000. If it's still working properly, obviously I would want to keep it in there, especially because it pumps out about 25 more liters per hour than the Walboro that I ordered. So we're gonna go for a quick test drive once the car warms up, see if that makes a difference. Try to adjust the fuel pressure regulator. That'll up the fuel pressure, maybe take it for another spin if it doesn't start to rain, and we'll go from there. Getting a bad breakup. Super annoying. Car's fast though. We'll try the next thing. Fuel pump. I was just about to go for a test drive, and I was letting it warm up out in the driveway and just kind of letting the cobwebs clear out. And then it just died. It just stopped and wouldn't start back up. And I checked the fuel pressure, and I was listening to the pump, and instead of that normal insane sound that it normally makes on startup, like, you know, Optimus Prime getting ready to transform, it just went So I think my fuel pump just literally took a dump right in the driveway right before I was about to go on a test drive. I was able to turn the ignition over, and I was getting nothing for fuel pressure. I mean, gauge didn't even move. I'm gonna need to change out that fuel pump. So we'll see what happens. And thank goodness my wife was home, so she could help me push it back into the garage. Yeah, you know, great. Single turbo rotary, blah, blah, blah. It's super awesome. Push it into the garage. Here is the suspected culprit of all of my woes. The fuel pump. And here is the new one. So, yeah, we're gonna be swapping out, you know, Godzilla for, you know, T-Rex. So I'm really interested to know what this will do, but I'm gonna swap these out, see if I can't get some fuel pressure with this guy, and go from there. I just found it kind of amusing that, you know, just look at the size difference. It's it's pretty unbelievable. I haven't been able to figure out what exactly is wrong with the car at this point, but it's an absolute blast to drive, and I'm really looking forward to figuring this out so that I can really put my foot into it and see what the car is really capable of doing. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.